For Lake County Narcotics Agency, Wednesday, May 3rd. To order. First order of business is approval of the minutes from April 5th.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Director's report.
A couple of things this month. It should be fairly quick though. We don't have a whole lot. The enforcement, our cases were in the included in the packet. We initiated 13 new cases in April, made 3 arrests, conducted 17 controlled buys. Most of those were new initiated cases, which is why there's not a lot of arrests or indictments yet, because those are cases we're still moving along, doing multiple buys on, that kind of stuff. A couple things to note: we assisted Willoughby PD with a psilocybin mushroom grow, which is just a rare event. I mean, it's the first time I've seen one. I think it's been about 10 years since the agency has seen one, and it was a big one. We got about 50 terrariums, or they use, this is common, they'll use like the large size plastic, like Tupperware, like that your wife would store sweaters, or, you know, like the big bins, the ones that are 24 inches high and like 30 inches long. So they use those bins, they put a lid on them, they put holes in the sides of them, they pack those holes with cotton to help control moisture. They put their cultures and their spores inside there, and they get mold growing, they get mushroom spores growing. So this was a big one. We had about 50 of those plastic tubs. We seized, you know, all the materials involved in the production of it, and a little over 2 pounds of dried finished products. So it'll probably be an F1 manufacturing and F2 possession case. So I thought that was kind of interesting. That's like the 3rd or 4th time in the last 2 years we've seized a sizable amount of mushrooms. So they're not common, but they're definitely still around. Maybe even we're getting a little more of them than we used to. So I think we've seized about 6 pounds of mushrooms now in about 18 months. So that's quite a bit of mushrooms. So we also had we have a case going on. We won't get into names or anything, obviously, because it's an ongoing case, but we've done a 1 ounce buy of crystal meth, and then also a 1 ounce buy of crack cocaine from the same target. He's a repeat violent offender, very long criminal history, prior drug trafficking, so we expect to cap that off here in the next month or 2. That's a west end of the county case. So, you know, I intend to get a guy, particularly the crack, selling an ounce of crack at a time is fairly large. Crack buy. So, financials are included with the packet. Carryover balance as of April 27th is 4.495. The state forfeiture fund is currently at $288,289 and some change. The federal forfeiture fund is at $621,831.78. We paid out a check of $23,695 during the month for a new vehicle for one of the agents. We also received in a check for $29,116 and some change. That was from the city of Cleveland on behalf of the Northern Ohio Law Enforcement Task Force's 2010 through 2021 reconciliation. So apparently Cleveland's not good at keeping track of their forfeiture accounts, and they at some point realized we helped them with the case like in 2016, and we were due $29,000 in equitable sharing from that case. So they coughed up a check, and that found its way into the federal fund last month. Some old business to go over. Welcome aboard, Matt. As you guys know, we talked about it last month. Matt Nagley will be replacing Matt Byers, so that's easy enough. We traded a Matt for a Matt. Jim Schultz will be coming on board July 1st. That'll replace John Geeling, who's going to be leaving in June. So those two appointments were made by the commissioners 2 weeks ago, I think, at the meeting. I think it was. I had included, or I had forwarded you guys your appointment paperwork with their 3-year terms, Matt. So it's, I think, through the end of, if I'm correct, 25 or 24. And then normally what happens is the commissioners, just as long as you're still interested in staying on board, will recommend, and they'll reappoint you again for another 3-year term, is generally how that works. The terms are staggered, so you and Jim, I think coincidentally, will both end at the same time, but like Ken or Randy's ended in different years, and we just kind of stagger them around, but it's a formality.
You're just not allowed to retire this year.
So, yeah, he's too young to retire, he ain't going anywhere.
15 years.
To be around for a while.
Our roofing project was completed last week. They did a really good job. Everything they said they would do, they were on top of. They did it well. Thanks to Mark Eifelis, who helped me a lot with that. The only thing left is we're going to have to pay them, and that's always the sticky part. Payment's going to be roughly $144,000. We had talked about this before. I say roughly because I do have an exact figure, but I don't know if they're going to charge for any replacement boards. I know they had to put some new wood underneath, maybe 6 or 7 boards. It really was not too bad. So maybe that's just absorbing the cost, or maybe that's going to go up to $100 or something. But we'll be paying that out here, I'm sure, in the month of May, and that'll be reflected in the financials for next month. At the April meeting, the board approved the purchase of a movable wall system for the shoot house that's being constructed at the training center. My agents in particular will benefit from this because we do our own search warrants on occasion, and this movable wall system allows us to train room entries and that kind of stuff. You guys did already approve this. It was a purchase of $21,439. I have not cut a check yet. We're getting very close to doing that. What I would like, though, today is, originally I said that that would be paid out of federal forfeiture funding. I'd rather pay that out of state, and there's 2 reasons for that. One is that I believe it's a training item and it will fit. It is an allowable expense under the federal forfeiture money when you read MRs. However, it's a wall system, and I'm worried they're gonna look at that as construction related and give me a hard time. Now, I think if they give me a hard time, I could send them all the paperwork and explain it to them, and they would understand eventually that it's a training thing, and I believe it's an allowable expense. But why even go down that path of having to argue with them if I don't need to? So that's the first reason. The second reason is, and I'll get to it under new business, I'm going to ask to spend some money out of the federal fund for body cameras. So I'm just kind of trying to share where I'm pulling some money from, or spread around where I'm pulling some money from. So unless someone on the board has a problem or we need to discuss, I guess I'm hoping just by a quick voice vote, you guys will approve that we purchased that wall system out of state trust fund.
We already approved it, but just,
Correct, but at the time I said I was going to do that out of federal, so I just want to be clear.
everybody good with that? Any concerns?
All right.
An update on so the main building's almost complete. We got pushed back on HVAC till July now, so we're going to do temporary air conditioning probably until that comes in. We went out to bid for the big building, the 40 by 40 building, and it came in $35,000 under our spec. So it was kind of nice that morning of the bid opening, we had 0 people bid at it, and 2 people put in last minute. People that are doing the construction there currently, and another company came in lower. So it was just vetted, and we're going to have it in front of us. So
Oh, good. So that's
yeah,
a
save a little money there.
Frank said he thought you got pretty much still on pace, with the exception of that HVAC, which, and when you said that, all I keep thinking about is my generator, which just this project never ever is going to finish. So
We're having trouble getting power there, right? I think we have a fix to that, so we got our 3-phase power going in by the 15th of this month.
good. Good. So that's moving along.
Sure, that wall system, is it exactly what we need? Any better than what we're getting, or is it?
No, it's good. We made an alteration to the building, so rather than taking it out of the building, we have opening doors, so we can just take it into a side room
Yeah.
and put it all there.
I guess my thought is,
Very
make sure
movable.
we get something really
It's
good.
exactly what we want.
Okay.
Is this wall system for life?
No, it's for simunitions. So there is no live fire in this building.
Okay, next point of business was just an update, and we've been talking about this for a couple of months now. I'll defer to Mr. Colson and Chief Ice to kind of bring you guys up to speed on the status of adding the sheriff to the board as a voting member, not just somebody here to kind of consult and take in, but someone to actually have voting rights.
So at the chief's meeting today, we discussed the issue, and, because there has to be a new MOU, and actually, acting secretary here, Chrissy's over here, whatever. She sent me the upgraded MOU draft. So I explained it at the chief's meeting, what we're doing, why we're doing it. Everybody was in 100% agreement, and get support from their mayors or authorizers, whoever ends up signing the signature page. So as far as the chiefs are concerned in the county, we're all on board with that.
So I have a letter in what we call our SIG file, to the other commissioners that's been signed off. I mean, it's signed tomorrow.
Thought it was too.
Yeah. And, so that's good to go from our end. I think we have to let the mayors and managers know. We have to let them know.
So I talked to Dennis, Mayor Morley, after you and I spoke, and he had COVID at the time. And then the next day was a mayor's and manager meeting, which he wasn't going to because he was sick. But he said he provided him whatever information was.
We could do it in an email through that group too, which is.
So, yeah, that's not a problem. Just trying to get the word out there. Yes.
The one thing, and Rich, I don't know if you can help with this, a couple of the chiefs at the chiefs meeting suggested that when you guys are sending it out to the mayors and managers, would it be possible to send it at the same time to the chiefs for each city or CC them in some way? More than one chief said that their mayor or manager doesn't necessarily always check their inboxes. And if they get it as well, they'll make sure they approach their mayor or their city manager and make sure they understand it and get it moving that way.
I'll reach out to Judy to do this, because we have that database for that change.
That's perfect. So if we can kind of get it to the mayor and the chief of each city, I think that will move along pretty quick. And I think we'll be good to go.
The only change is, it's a mutual aid agreement with all of the law enforcement agencies, subject to political subdivisions in the county. The only changes are, is we're increasing the membership of the board to 8 people, making the sheriff's position a permanent position on the board, the same as the prosecutor's position and one of the commissioner's position. Since we then have an even number, the potential for a tie vote arises, so we've made the change that whoever is elected as the chairman of the board will only get a vote to break a tie. So we take care of the even number. That's the only changes in the entire mutual aid agreement. It does have to go to each city, and their city council or their township trustees have to approve it, sign it, and send it back, and it'll be in effect.
So that's that. Thoughts, questions? That's pretty straightforward. Okay. I'm going to ask you guys to spend a little money on 2 things today. First thing is, I'd like approval to purchase a vehicle. I know I just purchased one a few months ago, but here's the logic in this. Chris Melito will be back from his National Guard deployment at the end of this year. When he comes back, we're actually gaining a whole new agent because we've replaced Chris while he's gone, and then when he comes back, we're going to have an additional body, and we'll see where we're at financially a year and a half after that when Chris Begley retires, and we can decide whether we're going to keep that extra man, which I think we are for a while, and just kind of manage that through attrition if we need to. Extra man means I need another vehicle. It's early, it's only May, he's not back till January, but I've had a couple conversations with John Thrower. Just like everybody else, the car thing is getting better, but it's still a little tricky at times, and if I need to order it, it might not come in until October-ish, And then I'd rather have it in early and just have it sit until he's back and then we put a guy in it versus waiting till the fall. And then in the fall, if I order and it's delayed and I don't get it, I ordered this Malibu that we got, I ordered last fall. I didn't get it till April. So that's the logic and why I'm asking for another one now. So probably a sedan or an SUV, I don't know what yet. I'll come to the board with more specific once I know what we're actually placing an order for, but I'm seeking board approval to purchase an additional vehicle.
Vote, or, yeah, you don't know what you're getting here, right?
No, I don't know what I'm getting yet. I would anticipate an SUV, but I don't know for sure.
I need a motion to approve the direction of purchasing the vehicle with details about cost. You know, fill us in here.
I'll make a motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Not yet, Frank.
Get these vehicles too.
I'm saying that I might make another change.
Truthfully, about 2 vehicles a year is how it works at the ABC anyway. There's 10 agents, including me. There's 10 sworn agents. You figure a car's good for give or take 5 years, depending on how, you know. We keep cars 7 years or 100,000 miles. I don't know what everybody else does, whatever comes first. We have a couple cars that are 11, 12 years old, but, you know, those are specialty cars that we only use for drive, you know, if we have to drive an informant to a buy, that kind of stuff, so we like to throw over and dumpy.
Do you have a ramming car?
I need a ramming car.
You should probably
Us and men are both
probably
in one.
invest in a ramming car.
We'll get to that here in a minute. So this will be, you know, a second purchase of a vehicle for this year, and that's going to be pretty much the average. It's about 2 vehicles a year. So that's that. Next issue, I mentioned to the board a few months ago that I was going to begin looking at body camera systems. I just think with liability and with the carryover in with the amount that we have in our federal forfeiture fund, there's no reason not to move forward with cameras for the agents. We won't wear them all the time like a patrol officer would, but certainly when we're doing search warrants, when we're doing arrest warrants, when we're doing interdiction operations, there's no reason my guys can't wear a camera on their vest just like the uniformed officers are. Mr. Colson, I'm sure, would agree, it's very good evidence. Usually on interdiction stuff, we're trying to talk our way into a vehicle search or use a canine to get PC for a vehicle search. So documenting all that, documenting a verbal consent, all that kind of stuff is useful. And then, of course, the liability of it all. I'm going to mention, I'll mention here in just a minute that we smashed up a car along with Menor. One of the agents came very close to firing gunshots at a guy in that incident. Thank God he didn't, but again, that use of force we want to get documented. So I've done some research. I'm asking the board for authorization to spend $63,000. That will cover a 5-year all-inclusive contract with Motorola WatchGuard system for 10 body-worn cameras, plus an 11th camera as a backup, in case one of the ones goes down. They are insured with the contract, so if a camera breaks, or if we drop it, or it gets smashed in a tussle or something, send it back, they'll give us a new one, but I'll have an 11th on hand so that if that does happen, the guy can have it while he's waiting the 2 weeks for the new one to come in. It includes the redaction software, it includes the computer to run everything on, it includes cloud storage because it'll be a cloud-based system. We're not going to do a server-based system. It includes their IT folks to come out, set everything up, and train you on it. So it's an all-inclusive cost, and it's going to be $63,000 and some change, and I don't quite know exactly, $63,450 or around there, because they still have to give me the quote that includes the extra camera. Right now it's $62,090, but the extra camera is going to be about $1,000. So it's probably $63,100 or $200.
How many years is that plan?
That'll cover 5 years.
And then, is there a replacement during that time? Do they replacing it like halfway through and all? Or?
They don't unless you're having problems with them, and then they will. But it's not like, oh, we know for sure our new model's coming out in 2 years, so we're going to just replace with the new model. It's not that. The cost is spread out, it's not all at once. You pay yearly, you pay more the first year. These figures aren't exact, but it's roughly $25,000 the first year, $10,000 the next 2 years, and about $9,200 the last 2 years. So you pay once a year, you pay a chunk of money to them. And again, it's a 5-year contract. So think of it as you're leasing the cameras from them. But as you guys know, the chiefs anyway that are already doing this, the cost isn't really the cameras, it's the cloud, the storage, and the software, and the redaction, you know, all of that.
Having to burn this for the defense attorneys.
Yeah.
Well, we send it over via the cloud over to you guys, but our prosecutors, you know, they have to hold their cases for 25 years or something. They want everything, and then you have everybody there at the scene.
Mhm.
Takedowns all said and done,
Yeah.
and everyone's got their camera running, and it's hours and
Yeah,
hours.
yeah.
So that's something, you know, that's one of the challenges you guys are gonna have to confront to figure out who's
Who's gonna be the
your
download
CD
guy,
bird
and managing it, and the
Yeah.
burning it, and sending it over? Yeah, we're gonna have to cross that bridge. And that's why even at a smaller agency like mine, I prefer the idea of the cloud storage, because, you know, you can buy a server or a drive for it, but it gobbles a lot quickly, and so.
You gotta have a geek to get it off.
And then you really, unless you have somebody really techie, when things start breaking or you have issues, and we're fortunate because we do have the support of the county IT here. One of the reasons I decided to go with Motorola WatchGuard is because the county IT assisted Wycliffe quite a bit, putting their Motorola system in. So I know the county IT guys understand WatchGuard, and they've been down that path before. So, because we'll have to depend on them to help us a little bit.
I think someday everyone's gonna be cloud-based.
Yeah, it just makes more sense, I think. So, I mean, I'm cost-wise, I'm not sure how it breaks out one versus the other, but, you know, we're comfortable with the cloud-based stuff because we use something called Collio, which is our covert recording stuff that we make our we do our recordings of our undercover drug buys with. And Collio is cloud-based, and we have very good luck with it. And guys are comfortable, they understand the concept. They understand that even though it's cloud-based, they still have to download for individual cases and put it in a case folder so that it gets over to Mr. Colson's office without any issues. So, you know, it took a while to sort that through and get them all dialed in and understand how to do that. So why reinvent the wheel? This should very much work like an extension of that. So I'm asking for $63,000 and some change. It will be under $64,000. When I say and some change, I don't mean 7,000 more. I mean in the hundreds. So it will be less than $64,000 with a contract with Motorola Solutions to provide 10 body-worn cameras, cloud storage software, and support to LCNA. Cameras will be used by agents for search warrants, interdiction, search. We talked about all that. Costs will be paid in yearly installments, and the price is guaranteed for the 5-year period. After that, you start over with them and see where they're at.
Have you talked to Packman about this?
No. Why? What, like, I'm guessing you're thinking of something I did, so.
Well, the bidding requirements.
Oh, well, it is over, because it's over 50. Yeah, we'll have to.
Is it divided up each year though?
No, can't do
Because
that.
you're not, you're basically buying a service. Okay, let's run it past him.
No, I have no problem running past him, I agree, we can do that. And if he says,
You may not be able to pick, you may have
Is
to.
that,
we might have to go out for bid.
but is that fall under any kind of a state purchase agreement? or
I don't know, does the state buy this? Does the state-
I don't know. I will.
Okay, why don't you give Hackman a call and let him look
Absolutely.
into that?
Yeah,
Make
yeah.
That's
sure
why
they-
cameras to the sheriff's department use, do they use WatchGuard?
Panasonic.
I gotta think they're a state vendor because they're Motorola and WatchGuard.
Let's just double check.
However, what does it hurt? We wanna make sure we do it appropriately. And we're just at the inception of it. So yes, I will, let me make a note. I'll get ahold of Dave. We'll get it figured out.
Dave Persone would have had that already run. That's
Just saying.
It's remember Dan Dunlop didn't have a vote in this pool.
Touche, buddy.
All right, so we can just table that and do a
Making a
vote.
mistake here. Really?
It's your guys' call. You can authorize the expenditure, assuming that we're gonna make sure it's right, or I can come back once I've talked to Dave.
Will the expenditure be authorized to go like in a separate line item on your budget, so that it gets taken out every year and you authorize what you need for the year, or?
No, what we'll do, assuming that we clear all the legal hurdles with the prosecutor's office, I think what we'll do is we will pay it each year, whenever, the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, however they do that, and then it'll be a charge back out of our federal forfeiture fund, because it won't come out of our
So we don't have to
regular
vote on it
operating.
every year after we vote at the.
Correct, it won't, because it won't come out of our general fund, it'll come out of the federal forfeiture fund. So, do you agree with that, is that correct? Yeah. So that was that. I'll clarify, and we'll follow up at the next meeting about this. I'll clarify it all with Dave. So, just a couple things on grants. We recently completed our 2022 Recovery Ohio grant application. Our 23 grant application, I mean. We're requesting $75,000 from the state. That's what we got last year. I expect we will get the same, but you never know with the grant folks. We won't have an award amount for a few months yet. We're also awaiting our award notice on our 22 Drug Law Enforcement Fund grant. We've requested $100,000 in that grant. That's consistent with past years. I'm currently writing our 2023 Jack Byrne grant proposal. We won't find out about that until late in the year. Those three grants combined should bring in about $200,000. That's about what they've brought in the last few years. In 2023, this year, we also have an ARPA grant, which is bringing us $45,000, but that's a one and done. So at the end of this year, when that grant falls off, you know, our grant funds will drop by $45,000 next year. Maybe a little more if they cut either of the other grants. I know Ken and I have talked a lot about this because they get a JAG award. It seems like the JAG award gets reduced every year. That's just what's been happening for a while. You guys too, right, Frank?
Yep.
So it might get reduced again. I mean, we're down to like 17,000 that they're giving us on it. It's almost not worth writing it, but we'll keep writing it because we're in place and we've received it for a while. I went to a task force commanders meeting in April, and there was a lot of discussion about trying to increase some funding to the drug task forces around the state. Now, all of this is in its planning stages, and it seems like they're always talking about this and nothing ever comes to be. One thing they're looking at doing, which I think is interesting, I think about a dozen states do it now, is attaching a fee on every wire transfer, wire transfer that leaves the country. And it's either leaves the country in general, or it's leaves the country to select countries. So, and Mexico is absolutely at the top of the list. So, if you wire money to Mexico, there's a 10% fee or something like that that would be charged as part of the wire. And that 10% money then goes into a fund that's used to fund drug enforcement and also drug outreach and recovery efforts in the state. I think about a dozen states have done this. The reason they like to, the logic in why states have done this is because there's been studies done that show how much of money being wired to particularly Mexico can somehow be tied to the drug trade, and the number's pretty staggering. I mean, it's high. Not to say that anybody wiring money to Mexico is doing something illegal. That's not true at all. There's many, many people in this country who are working, and they wire money back to help take care of family or whatever, and it's perfectly appropriate money. But there is, as you would obviously expect, a connection between dope sold on the streets in the United States and how that money is moved back into Mexico. And while some of that money is moved the old-fashioned way, like in trucks, obviously, it's impossible to move it all that way, so a lot of that money is where. So the state's looking at that. I think they've gotten a little traction with a couple of state senators and state reps, but this is something that's a long way off. I think they envision it as helping the Drug Law Enforcement Fund grant money, which the pool for that money used to be about double the size that it is now. So that money just keeps getting smaller and smaller. We talked a little about that through COVID. COVID really hurt that fund because that's fees assessed on traffic citations, and traffic citations plummeted in 2020, 2021, 2022. And quite frankly, I don't think they've fully recovered. Do you feel like you guys wrote as many tickets as you did in 19?
We're getting back there
You're
now.
getting back
Yeah.
there, yeah. I think some places it dropped, and then they're younger officers, that's all they've known.
Yeah.
And now you're asking them to write a lot of tickets, and they don't want to write tickets.
Yeah, I would circle back around, and that is
So
trying
there's
to,
a little of
trying to
that.
light that fire now to show them how.
I gotta slow
how you
down
really
every
can.
time I come in and go home.
So anyway, that's just some stuff about funding and mechanisms, and, you know, we try to get, as you guys know, the agency spends more than the levy raises every year. The way we're able to make up that difference is through the grant funding. But the grant funding that used to be, you know, $250,000 or more is now going to be down to, you know, 200,000, or actually probably a little less than 200,000. You know, so that's just the reality of what's going on. So, last piece of business I had, unless anybody had anything on that, just figured I'd make you guys aware. Ken's well aware of this. On April 27th, Wycliffe, Menor, and the Lake County Narcotics Agency took a male into custody who was selling fentanyl pills. We were particularly interested in this individual because Menor had a fatal overdose death, and it is believed that this male was involved in supplying that fentanyl to the male who ultimately died. We set up a meeting with this guy at a gas station in Wycliffe. We rarely do buy-bus type operations anymore because there's just too much risk in them. However, this was an unidentified male that Menor detectives had made phone contact with through a deceased individual's phone.
Butler did a great job.
Butler did do a great job. Kudos to him for sure. Well, Ryan does a good job all the time. You know that, right? So this was a case where it was paramount to take this guy into custody because his identity was unknown. We blocked him in the gas station parking lot, and sure enough, he threw the car into drive and tried to take off anyway. Hit our car and a Menor unmarked car hard enough that the car actually then hit Dondria and almost knocked him off his feet. The guy kept going once he made contact with the cars. His tires were spinning, there was smoke, and he's lucky he didn't get shot, but all's well that ends well. He was taken into custody by Menor PD. Our car looks like it's going to be somewhere between $2,000 and $4,000, but nobody can give you a straight answer anymore because no parts are in, and until we get the parts, and by the way, we don't know when we're going to get the parts, and even if we get the parts, we don't know about the computer module and all their background, but whatever, we let's call it $4,000 in damage to a car. So,
Does the suspect have insurance?
I asked Menor that question, and they laughed at me too. So I think we all know the answer is no. And in this case, I think it was an appropriate time to I mean, we're careful about that. We haven't dinged up a car in a long, long time, but the other thing was he was wanted, and he's got a lot of firearms offenses on his record. I mean, he's a bad kid. It was a good thing to get him in custody. So, but just, you know, I'll be spending some money to fix a car. So, and that's what I had. Anybody have any questions?
No questions? Motion for adjournment would be in order.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Anybody opposed?